Do you think that living in a foreign country would make you happier? What about moving to a country that ranks really high on a world happiness survey? I'm going to unpack that question today. Now, thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you. If you're new here, welcome, and consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so that each time I upload a video about life abroad, moving abroad, or finding the confidence and courage to live life on your terms, you will be notified. My name is Patricia Brooks, and in 2018, I left the United States and I moved to France. And no, I did not use a happiness index to pick my country. And I'll talk about that a little later. But I am talking about this today because I saw this on an expat board. And it was a question that really stopped me in my tracks, and I was really curious to see what the answer was. And so I'm going to read that question, and I'm going to read some of the comments, and then I'm going to give you my opinion on that. Okay? So the question, this was in Reddit on the expats sub group. And I'm going to put a link to this along with the latest World Happiness Survey that they're referring to so that you can see where countries rank. All right. So the question was, the new World Happiness Report was released last month. People who moved to a quote unquote happier country on the report than their own, did you actually find yourself happier? How much of these rankings do you think is actually helpful? And I read that and I was like, yeah, I'm really curious to find out what people had to say, because I had not, like I said, considered a happiness index when I moved abroad. I think in part because I had seen these surveys, and the countries that seemed to be the happiest seemed to be the coldest. And I don't particularly like cold weather. So that did not play into my equation. But the first person who commented said, I moved from number 16 to number 8. And 16 this year was the United States, 8 is Norway. And the poster said, I feel safer, but not happier. Happiness indexes measure happiness of the native population, not the immigrants. And when I read that, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? It's not gauging whether somebody who moves there is happier. It's gauging the people who actually already live there are. And then somebody highlighted that comment and said this. There are all kinds of reasons why the natives might be happier than expats: access to social services not available to non-citizens, or having established non-state local personal social support networks. Or less happy than expats: oppressive governments, lower average income, etc. And I was like, yeah. So I think it's interesting to look at whether or not a country or a country's population is happier, but I don't know that it necessarily is so important or a good thing to use as a determining factor on where to move. All right. So I moved to France because I wanted to become fluent in French, and I wanted a challenge. I love to expand myself personally. The personal development is huge for me. And in the United States, I was doing pretty big things. I was public speaking. I was writing and publishing books. I was doing all these great things. But it just seemed like every time I would reach a goal, I was always looking about for the next one. And I thought, well, if I'm living in a foreign country, I'm going to have a lot of challenges to overcome, and it's not going to go away quickly. And that has been the case. I'm 4 years in, and while things seem to be normal for me now, there's still challenges I face, and that helps me to grow as a person, and I absolutely love it. And yes, I am fluent in French, though I continue to improve because there's always room for improvement. Now, I'm going to read some comments from people who moved from countries that were happier or higher on the list in the happiness index to countries that were lower, and what they had to say. This person said, I went from number 16 to number 119, and I'm infinitely more happy. LMAO. As others said, this doesn't rate happiness for immigrants. Another person said, I moved from number 16 to number 22. So my happiness level should have taken a dive, but I'm actually much happier than I was before. I realize my experience is just one data point, but I think this report is mule muffins. I've never heard that expression before, but I like it. So those are a couple of comments from people who moved from countries that were higher on the happiness index scale than the country they moved to, and they seem to be happier. So I don't think there's any correlation to people who move to countries that are happier or less happier than their current country in determining whether somebody is happy in a new country. And I think the reason is there are so many reasons and so many factors that go into somebody being happy or unhappy, not just the country they live in. I think that the length of time somebody has been living in a foreign country can have a huge impact on that. If somebody moves and it's their first 6 months, there's a big adjustment period and it's hard and you doubt yourself, right? But if you're there for 15 or 20 years and things are normal for you and you've been accepted, then there's a different energy there and maybe you're happier. I think also that needs come into play here. I think the United States, the cost of living is going through the roof. And I think that is a reason that some people there might be unhappy. And so if they go to a country that is lower on the happiness list, and but the cost of living is lower for them, they may be happier because there's less stress around money. So I don't think there's any correlation to moving to a happier or less happy country. And I think that's because of the things I just said, but I also believe this, and this is what another poster to this thread said. They said that happiness travels with you, right? And I'm going to add, unhappiness travels with you too. So if you are unhappy to begin with and you move to a foreign country and you think that you're going to be happier, think again. That is not a reason to move to a foreign country. This goes back to something I stress all the time in my videos. What is your why? What will you be able to have, be, do, or experience when you're living in your foreign country? And if the answer is, I'll be happier, you need something better than that, because you may be happier and you might not be happier. And maybe some inner work is required. I do have a quiz on my website at thecouragecatalyst.com. And you can see a link to the quiz in the menu. And you can take that. And what it measures is mental preparedness and things like resilience and your ability to go with the flow. And I think the more prepared you are mentally for things like that, I think the easier your adjustment is. I'm not going to say you're going to be happier, but the adjustment period will be easier. So you can check that out on my website, and I'll put a link to that in the description as well. I think happiness is an inside job, right? There are people who are living in conditions that we, from the outside looking in, would say, oh my gosh, how can they stand it? And they're happy, right? And then there are people who are living in conditions that you would expect them to be happy, but they're miserable. So it's an inside job. That's the case. And because of that, happiness travels with you as well as unhappiness travels with you. So what do you think about surveys like this? How are you choosing a country to move to? Or how did you choose the country that you moved to? Comment below. Now, if you are considering a move abroad, but have some doubt or some fear around doing so, I'd love to have a conversation to see where you are, where you want to be, and if working with me could help you to get there. And I'll put a link to my calendar in the description so you can find a time that works for you. That is all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in other videos that I've spoken about finding how to pick a country to move to, you can check out these videos here, and I will see you again next time. Bye for now.